All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to OneSoccer. I'm your host today, Josh Deming, joined by my colleague, Alex Gangue-Ruzic. And tomorrow, Alex, is the big day. We've done a few videos over the past month. The one I liked the most was kind of, the different paths that this national team program could go on if they win this match and they lose this match. It's one of the most important games I can think of in a long time. And despite what some say, it is important to win and to continue to win with this national team. So I am desperately hoping we do it because it's not every day you get the opportunity to already have a lined up match against the defending world champions and Messi. It is huge. It'd be massive for the program, for the growth of the sport leading up to the 2026 World Cup. And of course, just on general, I mean, seeing this rise in the national team, you want to see them compete in a tournament like this. And to miss out on the Nations League semifinals was already disappointing. And if they can't get past TNT, it would just be catastrophic. So sorry to go all negative right off the bat, but Alex, how are you doing today? Chat, let me know as well how you guys are doing and if you are nervous for tomorrow or not, or confident.
Yeah, I'm doing well. It's exciting. It's such a big match. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it's just the way the game's been hyped up. I don't know if it's this window. I don't think any nerves have set in from my part, at least. I mean, I think it's just everything happened so sudden. Like yesterday was already the Nations League semifinals, and it was fun to watch those. But maybe it's something where on the game day itself. But at the same time, I feel like there's a confidence. I think perhaps as we saw yesterday from Jamaica, who really gave the U.S. a stiff test. Maybe this Jamaican team's just better than we give credit for. I think they might have one of the best coaches in the region. I mean, the fact that they were missing, like 5 of their starters and they still went toe-to-toe with the U.S., I think that almost reassured me a bit in the sense that, you know what, like, yes, Canada losing to Jamaica, it stank. Canada was up 3-1. You know, they should have won. We went over that months ago. But at the same time, right, you're not looking back like, man, that was an upset. This wasn't like Haiti 2019 where you're like Canada threw away something they had no business doing. So now I think this is a chance for them to right that wrong and prove. And I think all the comments from the players as well has been very interesting to see this week. This confidence from Alphonso Davies, Tejan Buchanan, Kyle Larin, all these players we've seen speak. There's this confidence of, okay, we know who we are. We know that we maybe dropped the ball a bit against Jamaica. Let's get back on track now against Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, I mean, it was just disappointing. I think Canada deserved to go through despite the collapse. Regardless, they didn't. KJ is killing it in Texas right now with all these interviews. It's been fantastic. So if you guys want to go check out Davies, Buchanan, we got Johnson dropping at 2 o'clock today, right after this stream. Be sure to check those out as well. We'll bring up a few different clips from it as we kind of go throughout this stream as well. And I'm going to try to address the chat as much as I can, guys, because I want to hear from you. So just simply put a number in the chat on a scale of 1 to 10 of how confident you are. I'll be humble, but I'm going to answer on behalf of OneSoccer and put like an 8. But yeah, Alex, I think the interesting thing about the Jamaica side was, like you mentioned, they missed 5 of their best players and they still almost beat. It took a 96-minute own goal for them to go to extra time, and then the United States just completely took over from there. But did that make you a little bit nervous? Because if you're looking at this TNT side, I would say if they're able to do or take the script of what Jamaica just did to the United States, if they're somehow able to score first in that match, and then they're organized defensively and they just sit back, bunker, and try to defend, I mean, it almost, to me, like if Jamaica would have won that match, it would have been a perfect script for what TNT would potentially try to do against us. And it almost made me a little nervous. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's so important for Canada to get this first goal, but if TNT can somehow get a crazy start, I think it changes the way. Now, obviously TNT is a lot different than a side than Jamaica, but it is a blueprint. And you'd have to imagine if TNT are going to get the job done, it would start with maybe getting not a lucky own goal, but maybe a fortunate own goal, or buying your time and taking that opportunity. But do you think that TNT can learn something from what Jamaica just almost did against the United States?
I think not so much learn as they'll try. I think they'll try to emulate, because where Jamaica caught the U.S. was they were just early on, they were destroying them on set pieces, right? Like Jamaica, every time they got a wide throw in, they scored their first goal off the throw, and you don't always see that. It was a quick throw in, cross into the box, caught U.S. napping. And I think that's something Trinidad and Tobago are going to do, because looking at their numbers, they're a very dangerous set piece and counter-attacking team. So I think this is a side that is going to want to expose Canada on the counter and on set pieces. I think that's been a bit of a weakness for Canada. Jamaica got them on the counter a lot. There's been times over the last few years where Canada's been really hit on set pieces. They're not the most proficient team aerially, especially, when they were going for that back three of Johnston, Victoria, Miller. Johnston and Miller, not the most proficient in the air. Miller has improved that side of his game this year. Johnson, again, he's not a natural center back. I bet you TNT will be looking at those sorts of things and look to target Canada off the counter, off set pieces, kind of maybe invite Canada to be aggressive to start, and then as soon as they win the ball back, go the other way. So definitely, I think something for Canada to watch about, and I think that's been my kind of big theme looking at this game. For what it's worth, the TNT, they're not exactly defensive juggernauts. They ship chances, they ship goals. That's good for Canada. Canada can score goals. There's no doubt about it. Like, you're not looking at them losing to Jamaica because they didn't score enough. They scored 4 goals across both legs. They should have scored more, really. I think they had like almost 5 XG. Their question is, can they defend? So if you're Canada, maybe that means just slow things down for the first 5-10 minutes. Maybe you have a little more possession. Maybe you're not going gung-ho to get on the lead right away, and then kind of wear TNT out and knowing that you're going to get a goal eventually, but just don't give them the chances to be so dangerous where TNT can be on those set pieces in the counter.
Now, it looks like we have a very confident TNT fan in the chat. Another man by the name of Josh. Josh, welcome to the stream. So I'm going to pick your brain a little bit, Josh. I'm just going to read a couple of your comments here saying that you'll be playing us with your C team because you're, I guess, called up mostly local guys. So where's Josh at the comment? There's something about being confident. I lost it, Josh. So, Josh, what do you think? Oh, there.
One.
Oh, it's a different one. Okay. Well, Josh, or any TNT fan in the stream, let me know if you think that if TNT is going to upset Canada, with no disrespect, it would be an upset. I'm not saying it absolutely can't happen. We've seen Trinidad and Tobago basically eliminate, well, not basically, absolutely eliminate the United States. They are full of upsets. I just want to hear from you guys in the chat. What do you think it would take? Is it defense and then hit on the counter? Is it speed? Is it how? Like, what? Let me know in the comments. What do you think the biggest opportunity will be for TNT to take advantage of this Canadian side? I'm just curious. We are obviously a couple Canadians here, but Alex did go back and watch. I believe, Alex, did you go back and watch the U.S. and TNT matches? Did I put you on the spot?
I watched both. I watched the first 37 minutes of both games.
Okay.
There was a red card in the 37th minute of both games, so anything 10v11 wasn't really useful from a scouting perspective. So I just watched the 11v11 portion of that series, which was strangely little because both teams decided to have moments of madnesses in each leg.
It is a tricky one to go back and kind of take a look at that. But for the most part, I mean, the blueprint, like we were talking about, will more than likely just be sitting back, bunkering, and try to hit on the counter. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just the gameplay I'm assuming they're going to do. I'd be very surprised if they had more of the ball. I also think I think playing in, and let me know what you think, Alex. I think playing in Frisco, Texas is a bit of an advantage for Canada compared to Trinidad. I know it's going to be hot. I think that's goes without saying. But in terms of going down to maybe a hostile environment, playing on a more challenging turf, I think that would maybe, if it was 2 legs, you could maybe put a question mark over, all right, well, how is Canada going to go down there and get a result and then have to go back home? But I think playing in Texas with this pitch, I think the Canadians will be used to and will give them a bit of an advantage. But I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. I'm going to go back to a couple of Josh's comments here in a sec. But Andrew says he's a 9 out of 10, and he thinks that Canada will get the job done. The game is open. Any team can win it. We can't talk too much, but our midfield will be way stronger. That is all I'm saying. Keep an eye on the TNT midfield. But it's CONCACAF, man. Yeah. I mean, anything can happen. But Alex, let's go back to right here, right on cue. Alexander says the players seem really focused, and that's where I want to go next. So OneSoccer's been having a ton of content come out. We've all of a sudden just got access to our Canadian stars, some of the biggest names. I want to start off with a question that got me a little curious, Alex. Now, there were reports out there that Eustaquio will be wearing the armband for this upcoming match. But there's also a report out there saying that Davies asked Biello to consider him for the captain. So do you think that there is any correlation between seeing Davies maybe a little bit more active in the media now that he maybe wants the opportunity to wear the armband? Or do you think it's, I don't know. For me, like when you think of being a captain, you have to be in front of the media. You have to talk to the media. Davies is usually a very reserved man, doesn't talk a lot. I even saw a question where someone asked him, I think it was Shinetti or Cloak. One of them asked him about his future, and he was very hush hush. Doesn't say one thing or the other. Davies is smart enough to know what to say or what not to say. So I'm just curious to see what you think. Do you think Davies wants to be out in the media a little bit more just because he wants that armband, or do you think it's just coincidence?
It's a little column A, a little column B, because I think it's also something where the fact that so many key Canadian players have been made available, obviously, as we've seen, Canada is undergoing a bit of a structure change off the field. They've got, a new communications director on the men's side. Of course, we've seen Paulo Senra as well. The head of communications been doing a lot of work. I also wonder if it's just kind of, especially reading between the, Josh Cloak's article on, which was a great article on the camp. I think the other day he spoke to Alistair Johnson, and Johnson kind of spoke about this need to get a bit more focused on the match, and because maybe in 2022 and 2023 a lot of just everything kind of caught up to them. So I think also this is signs of confidence from them as well, being like, look, as a group, we're locked in on this game, we're willing to step up, talk about it. Whereas maybe in the last year or two, with everything else that was kind of going on, that could have taken a bit of a step back. So I think that's kind of the way I see it. And I think from Davies, I think this is a sign of him wanting to be a leader. I think he said it very nicely in his interview. Of course, the quote that caught on is him saying he wants to be considered. I think that was fair. Like, look, what I find wild about Davies, and I was looking through this, he's still only the 5th youngest guy in this team right now. Like, this is the young team, right? We've been saying all week, oh, this is the young Canada team. All the young players have been called in. Davies is still the 5th youngest guy on the team, like pretty much, other than, I think it's like Kone, DeFougerol, Jason Russell-Rowe, and I think Sirois. He's the old, like the youngest other than them, but he's the 4th most capped player. He's been around since 2017. I think he's at a point in this squad where he can, speak out and be like, look, I want to be a leader. Doesn't mean you have to give me the armband, which he said. And I think now what we're going to see is maybe a bit more of this leadership from Davies. And I think what's also interesting is he said, look, I don't need the armband. I don't want the armband to just have the armband. I want to be a leader. And if I get selected to be the captain, great. But I want to step up and be more of a leader. And I think that's good, because that's what you want from someone like Davies, that desire to want to lead, to want to take this team forward, because ultimately your best players are always going to be your leaders, whether or not they're wearing armbands or not. And I think that's the sort of attitude you want from Alfonso.
I think it was a very mature answer. I think it was the correct answer. Acknowledging that maybe he has some growth to do in that leadership role, and that there are other good candidates as well. I would say probably the majority of, I shouldn't say that, but from the people I've talked to, I think a lot of Canadian fans would like to see Eustachio wear the armband, and I think there's a good chance, and if the reporting is correct, that he will indeed wear the armband. So it will be interesting, but I do want to focus a little bit more on Davies just in terms of on the pitch right now. Josh says all we have to do is pressure Davies into a mistake. Josh is very passionate on here, saying, what has Canada done to be CONCACAF giants? I'm not going to get into that debate. I'm just going to say that this Canadian program has grown a lot over the past few years. There's been some pretty dark places that we've been in, but considering that the amount of talent we have spread throughout Europe, qualifying for our first World Cup, going to a Nations League final, 2023 was a disappointing year, and this game is wide open. There's no reason to think that TNT can't upset Canada. But again, from the Canadian side of things, if they don't win, it's on them. Right now, I think Canada's just in a better opportunity to go on and qualify for this Copa America, and I just think that's full stop. But if you don't understand that, then I think you're a little biased on the TNT side. But to focus on Davies a little bit, I do kind of think that these are the type of matches where Davies won't be at his best. If indeed TNT sit back and they bunker down, Davies is at his best when he's got the opportunity to stretch his legs, to run down the flanks, use that pace, and put in a dangerous ball. I sometimes find, Alex, that when that option isn't open, because say TNT is sitting back and absorbing a lot of pressure that don't allow Davies that kind of room, that he often then kind of drifts inside, because the term hero ball. He wants to create and he wants to, kind of throw the team on his back and do it. I think he runs into a little bit of trouble like that. So in a bunkering system like this, do you think we're going to see Davies cut inside a little bit more and try to create, or do you think we're going to see a more patient version of him where he will just maybe wait for that opportunity, stick to his position, and then hopefully have an opportunity to just do what he does? Or are you not worried about that at all?
I think we'll wait and see, because I don't know. For what it's worth, it just kind of gets lost in everything because a lot has happened since. But I think back to that first half against Jamaica in the second leg, where Davies, for my money, had one of his best halves in a long time, or at least because he scored a goal, of course, but then he was just having a great half in terms of 1-2 touch, etc. And then in the second half, it just kind of felt like everything went off the rails. So it's hard to look at Davies specifically because so much was going wrong, from Canada's defensive structure to Milan Borjan doing keep ups to, players wandering all over the pitch to there's so much that went wrong in that second half that I'm not looking at one player or like a Davies in particular thing. Oh, that's where everything fell apart. I think he showed the blueprint of what he could bring at his best. And I think, it sounds like Mauro Biello's been pretty clear with him. Like, a lot of the verbiage has been like, for example, this week in his scrum, Davies is like, look, for Canada, I'm a fullback now, right? Like he said it. I think we're going to see Davies embrace that sort of fullback role where it'll be 1-2 touch. We'll be trying to combine, trying to draw TNT in if TNT are willing to double team them, triple team them, play 1-2 touch, draw them out of space, and, just kind of play more of that wing back versus, what we've seen at times, especially that last year under John Herdman, where it was a lot of get the ball in the wing and ISO and 1v1 and want to dribble and want to take on everyone. I think we saw glimpses of that where under Biello, playing him a bit more as that conservative left wing back, getting him to use his space, his gravity. I don't know. I thought I saw a lot of growth in that regard, so I wouldn't be surprised if he builds on that. And we're seeing it a lot for Bayern too. It's the role he plays for Bayern, right? Like, I think it's been frustrating because it feels like under Tuchel he doesn't get forward as much as he used to under Nagelsmann, and it's a shame because he should be getting under more. But I guess the net benefit of it is he's getting a lot more touches in the build-up. He does a lot of that 1-2 touch play for Bayern, so it's something he's used to, and I think we'll see a lot of just because we've maybe been used to seeing him dribble so much for Canada for the last few years. But I would expect a change.
Yeah, Nagelsmann played the back three, which allowed him to be a little bit further up the pitch. But I do think it's a dangerous game to play if you decide to put 2-3 guys on Davies, because that's the nice thing about our national team right now, and the growth of it is that if you do decide to put that many people on Davies, it opens up different players, and you have players that are able to step up. Akone, Eustachio in the middle, you have Buchanan down the other wing, you have a David who can drop, and you have a Laren. Like, there's a ton of talent in this side, so if you focus a little bit too much on shadowing an Alphonso Davies, it just allows space for other talented players. But I've seen this question quite a bit, Alex, so I think we should go there very quickly. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it because we have went over it before, but I've had a lot of questions already that I've skipped over, but they're basically around the starting 11. 2-man midfield, 3-man midfield. What should we do? So, Alex, I'm going to need you to send me that beautiful lineup builder that you and I did the other day, and we're going to build our predicted starting 11 and have some fun and talk about what we think we're going to do. Now, I'm going to start off by saying I assume that Biello is going to go with a 3-5-2, mainly because that is just the system that he has shown to trust. But I also think you can probably tell from the players that he has selected. He has 5 center backs, 5 central midfielders, and 5 strikers. Plus, the system fits an Alphonso Davies down one flank. It fits a Tajon Buchanan. I'd be surprised to see him go somewhere else. Now, I did see a different variation of maybe a 3-4-2-1. Maybe drop David a little bit deeper with another player up there. I think, Alex, that's what you and I played with, the idea of a Buchanan, and then you push Johnston up. I also wanted to find a way to maybe get a Matthew Chouanier in there. I think he's deserving of a shout. But what we're going to do today, Alex, is we're going completely Biello. Not what we want to see at all. I want you and I to try to put our heads together. We can use the help of the chat to try to predict what we think Biello will go with, because I think that always makes it fun, and then to see how close we are. So first things first, I will share the screen here. And Alex, tell me, what system do you think he's going to go with? Is it a 3-5-2, or do you think there's any way we see something different?
I I think it could be either or. There's basically benefits and like negative aspects to both. Because actually, I built yesterday a 3-5-2 and a 3-4-2-1, and there's each different like benefits for Biello. Because if he goes for a 3-4-2-1, he likely either puts a Buchanan up there, maybe puts an Ugbo. It's a different challenge for TNT's defense to use because the TNT will probably play a 5-4-1. I think you can kind of stretch things out a bit more if you go for a 3-4-2-1. But then, of course, if you're going for a 5, that gives you a bit more solidity, a bit more oomph in the midfield. Really, all that matters is as long as there's like designated cover in the midfield. That's the big thing because the way TNT likes to press off the ball, that 5-4-1. Someone like an Andre Ramper said is always stepping aggressively. They're trying to always spring their striker forward in transition. There needs to be someone who's willing to stop that. So whether that's Eustachio playing as a 6, or if you go for a pivot of Eustachio Kone, making sure that both of them stay relatively, at least there's always one covering, or at least they stay relatively together so they're not both drifting forward. That's, I think, the main thing. So I think it really just depends if you want Eustachio a bit deeper. Maybe you end up playing that 3-5-2, but if not, there's benefits to the 3-4-2-1 in the way it will stretch out the pitch.
So don't you think though, like if Biello, again, we're assuming that we're going to have a ton of the ball. So don't you think it would make a little bit more sense to have to keep Piet out of this lineup? Because I could see Piet being an option as a 6, and then you have a Kone and Eustachio as 2 8s. But considering we may have so much of the ball, you get a different profile of a player, maybe like a Chouanier, or maybe it's David playing in that 3-4-2-1, and then you just kind of rely on Eustachio to get the ball deep, progress the ball, and kind of do what he does. Or do you think that's too much of a risk? Because that's where I'm leaning, is that Eustachio will be the 6 with Kone, and then am I crazy to think that Chouanier will start, or is there another way to do it? Or think about it, Alex. But let's start between the sticks very quickly, guys. And I think it's going to be Kripo. I just, like I said, I've talked about this quite a bit. I just think it's his time. It's the natural progression, I guess, of this national team. He just kind of seems like he's up next, and I don't have any issues with that. Do you think Dane's got an opportunity, or do you think it's going to be Kripo?
I think Kripo's gonna start. I imagine it's a close battle between him and St. Clair, but maybe in this situation that Kripo slots in and takes that spot for this game.
Has to be Kripo. I agree. Fits the system a little bit better, and like I said, excellent shot stopper. Great with the ball at his feet. He's our guy. We've been calling for it for a while. Broke his leg to win MLS Cup, so it's it's time for his flowers. Now we're getting to the back 3, and I put out a starting 11 the other day. I went Johnston, Waterman, and Miller just to kind of switch things up. And I want to get your take on 2 players here, Alex. So you and I have praised Cornelius a lot, and I still love everything about what Cornelius is doing at the club level, and I want to imagine it working for the national team. I haven't been totally convinced that Cornelius in the middle, besides Miller. Now I know they haven't had a ton of reps together, but it was almost like something was a little bit off about it. And then just given the way I went back and watched the CF Montreal games this season, Alex, and you were talking up Waterman through the middle, and you were not wrong. And it got me excited, plus the chemistry with Johnson that he's had in the past and Miller. It just got me thinking, so that's the reason I went that route. And I completely left out Bombito. So I want you to tell me why a Cornelius and Bombito back 3 with Miller maybe, or however you want to do it, would make the most sense. Just because I really do think this back 3 is open, and I'm not entirely sure what we're going to see.
Yeah, it feels like other than Kamal Miller, there's no certainties at the back. I feel like Kamal Miller's gonna start. He's key guy at that left center back position. What's nice is he seems to have that good chemistry with Alphonso Davies, where they cover each other nicely. Kamal Miller is a good ball progressor, and he can kind of bring a bit of that cover if Davies does drift forward. So I'd say Kamal Miller, but yeah, it really depends what you see otherwise, because Cornelius is a tough one to gauge because he had such a good year at Malma. He played exclusively in the middle of a back 3, so it should not be a question of familiarity with this sort of system. It's not like he's playing a back 4 there and then you're asking him to play a completely different role. It's an identical role. But I think it's tough because we didn't get the best version of himself last year for Canada, because it felt like every time he got a chance, Stephen Vittoria was like right over his shoulder as soon as any hint of anything went wrong, like against the Japan, right? Where it's like it was just rough for anyone in a Canadian shirt. Japan, was destroying them, and then Cornelius was the only guy to come out at halftime, right? Like that's such a tough confidence message for a center back. Like, oh yeah, your team got battered. We're subbing you out for Vittoria. And I think that's kind of also the vibe we've been seeing with Cornelius, where he hasn't really been given that leash to be what he can be in the middle of that back three, which is very solid in the air, bring a bit of that commanding presence. But I do also understand that we haven't seen the best of him in a Canadian shirt. And you can wonder, like, is that worth betting on in this game? But then conversely, we haven't seen a whole lot of any Joel Waterman in a Canadian shirt too, right? So you're kind of picking between those two options. I think what's nice is you kind of get something different with with both of them. I think with Waterman, what he's really impressed me is his positioning, and it's just like you don't notice him on Montreal. And that's the biggest compliment for a center back, is when you don't notice him and the team's defending well. It feels like with Waterman in those early games for Montreal, you barely noticed him, but in a good way. You had to look for him. You realize, oh, he's doing a lot of good things in terms of organizing his line, making sure his he needs to be he needs to be to win duels, position space, etc. So I think it depends what you feel could be more useful against this team. I do wonder if Cornelius might have the edge given some of his physical tools, because there's going to be some tough assignments on that TNT side. Someone like Rion Moore, the new Pacific signing, seems like a decent handful. I know Rampersad loves to make some late runs. There's some other guys who can cause some problems. I wonder if Cornelius gets the edge, but I think it kind of just depends what you want there. And then on the outside of a back three, what I'm saying, and I think, again, there's a reason why Johnston starts a lot. It's the possession. It's always been the possession. He brings you a bit of something on the ball where he helps you build up, and then he kind of slots out to a right back off the ball. But the big thing I'm worried about is aerially, and that's the one thing I will call for. TNT is very good in the air. Alistair Johnston, I think for Canada, he's a career 49% aerial duel winner, which is like for a center back, you want minimum 55, 60%. So I think that's something where it would make a lot of sense for a Bombito or even a Waterman, because he used to play there. Just because I think that aerial question could end up hurting Canada on, say, a set piece or on wide crosses, and that's kind of the bigger area. Because I think in the middle, either way, with Waterman and Cornelius, I'm fine with either battle. But maybe there's a scenario where I think at right center back, there's more of an argument for a Bombito or a Waterman, and who knows, maybe the back three ends up being a Miller, Cornelius, Waterman. I think that could be a very good combo, or of course Bombito if you feel he's ready to get dropped in.
And remember, I know it's hard, Alex, but do you think, it's hard to, I guess it's harder now to go with the starting 11 because Biello is making some, bold decisions, but I guess my mind just stuck back to basically everything I knew before this camp. And I just I don't know, I have trouble thinking that it's not going to be Johnston there. Do you think that there's more of a chance it will be Johnston, just given what Biello has done in the past? Or do you think that he will really shake things up? Because we haven't really seen Johnston out at right wing back, which would then push Tejan up. And I'm assuming that would create your 3-4-2-1 system. Do you see Biello doing something like that? And considering that we'll have so much of the ball, do you think he's worried about Johnston's aerial presence? I know that, chances for TNT will be probably few and far between, but if there's an opportunity in the air, Johnston will be kind of outmanned. Do you think he's going to worry about that? Or do you think he's going to want someone who's good on the ball going forward in that outside right center back that maybe has a little license to do some overlapping and underlapping runs? Or what do you think there? Because like I said, I like the vision that you're going for. I just don't know if I have it in me to push Johnston up.
I think it's what I've said is, if you're putting Johnston at right center back, you're kind of not acknowledging what you've seen over the last year, right? So it's kind of like, you're looking at past Canadian games, etc. And look, I think the thing is with the ball progression argument, of course, Johnston's very good on the ball. I will not doubt that. And I've seen it for Celtic. He's so good. That's why I want him at a right wing back, because he's good enough on the ball where I want him crossing the ball. That's one of his most underrated aspects of his game. But it's also not like you're looking at guys who suck at passing. Like Moise Bombito is passing at a very good level for Colorado this year. Joel Waterman has constantly been one of the best passing center backs in MLS since he arrived. That was always Joel Waterman's calling card when he got signed from Calgary, was oh, this is someone who's very, very, very good on the ball. We'll work on the rest, but he's very good on the ball. That's always been Waterman's calling card. So I think really, again, you're not losing much on the ball if you're going through for either of those options. So that's why I think because of that, you have to consider the defensive aspect, because that's what I'm more worried about. I think your chances to score goals, your chance creation isn't going to change much if Johnson's at right CB versus if he's at right wing back versus if he's on the bench, because you have enough options where you can play a Tajon Buchanan at right wing back and push Johnson to the bench, right? What I'm more worried about is what kind of chances, what kind of goals are you shipping to TNT, because that's what's going to decide the games. If you're going to allow some cheap goals, especially early on. So that's why I'm so focused in on what is the best defensive group, because I think especially like if you're playing a three of Miller, Cornelius, Waterman, pick your combo. It could be Cornelius, Waterman, Bombito. You drop Miller entirely. It could be Miller in a back three, as we're seeing in the comments. I think any three of those combos, you're still very good on the ball. Miller's excellent on the ball. Cornelius is solid on the ball. Waterman's very good on the ball. Bombito's very good on the ball. But with either three of those four CBs that we're talking about, they all bring you a bit more in the air, a bit more natural center backs, and that's what I'm really focused in on, because I think TNT would hone in on that. So that's where I'm going with that kind of thought.
I agree. I'm just trying to push you on it, Alex, because like I said, I'm not convinced that Biello will indeed do that, but I don't know. Like I said, he's surprised. I had absolutely no idea the roster he was going to drop would be anything like the one that we got. So maybe he is learning. Maybe he's, like I said, he's putting a stamp on this team to show that he's learning from his mistakes and pushing this team forward after what was a difficult 2023. So I like your answer, and I don't disagree. I did put out a starting 11, so you guys can go take a look at that if you want. I did go CF Montreal heavy. There were 6 former CF Montreal players in that, and I did go with the back three of Johnston, Waterman, and Miller, even though I don't think that that's likely. So we are going to go with what Alex wants today. So I'm going to let him do the final pick. So we have Miller, and I 100% agree, slotted in at the outside left center back. Like I said, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of comments actually about how they would prefer Cornelius over Miller in that outside left. But again, at the end of the day, I just think, Miller is locked in this starting 11. Alex, I know you just said you agree. So he'll be the outside left. That's just is what it is. So Alex, fill in the final 2 spots. More so in the mold that you're looking for with the natural center backs. But which one do you think is a little bit more realistic? And tell me, and I'm going to add them to the team.
I mean, if we're going to go from a Biello perspective, I think Cornelius Waterman's pretty fair, right?
Okay.
I think, look, it's something where Waterman, he's playing in the middle of a back three right now, but he is used to that right CB role. I think that's probably the most reasonable, because as much as I'd love to throw a Bombito in there, maybe it's a big ask to ask him to start a game of this magnitude, but let's just go for that. But I think, look, as we've mentioned, there's merits to either one of these combos we've kind of discussed. But I think, again, we have to remember Cornelius has a decent amount of experience with this national team as well. I think this will be a good learning opportunity from him. And look, between Miller, Cornelius, Waterman, you're not lacking for experience. Like Waterman's, is mid to late 20s. He's playing 5 years in MLS. Cornelius has been with this national team for 5 years now. Kamal Miller's been with this national team for 5 years. Definitely some experience in that group.
I agree. I think it's wild, though. We could see a pretty different looking back three. I know Cornelius is just starting to sneak his way in that conversation, but it would really switch things up. And I do think in this 3-5-2, if that's a system that this national team is going to, again, be molded in going forward, these three are playing in their natural positions, and you kind of get away from that Alistair Johnston weakness, and you also allow Johnston to do what he does best. I think because Richie Larea isn't in this starting 11, it makes this a little bit more realistic. And you can probably see what Johnston can really do at a right wing back role, which is what we've seen him do at CF Montreal when he was incredible and earned that move to Celtic. He plays in just a natural right back, but the way Celtic play, I mean, he might as well be a wing back. He's up the pitch, left, right, and center. So I like it. I do think, just in terms of the position itself, Waterman would offer a lot. I do like him on the outside right center back position as well. So I like it, Alex. I put in your 2 wing backs because I'm assuming that's what you want to see. Davies will be at the left, no debate, and then it'll be Johnston. I don't think you're going to sit him, which would then is that going to change the system though? Are we now looking at a 3-4-2-1? Is that where
I guess that's the one thing that's kind of pushes you more for 3-4-2-1, because it doesn't feel like you're benching Buchanan. It doesn't feel like you're benching Johnston, right? Like it feels like both of them are going to start. But yeah, I don't know. This makes things interesting. I think what I do wonder as well, this is just kind of as an aside for this game, just seeing this discussion we have and Davies being more of a fullback, Johnson being more of a fullback, it really seems to indicate that I just don't see it from this game, but it feels like Canada's pushing to be in a back four long term. Like it really feels like they will. Because I think when you do that, you put Johnson at right back, Davies at left back, and then you get that third midfielder, and then you can still play a Buchanan on the right wing, right, for example, and kind of do that. But it just feels like at the moment, the biggest thing that's stopping them from that is the center backs, right? It just doesn't feel like they're fully confident enough to throw only two center backs back there, especially that's the one thing with Davies and Johnson. They'd end up being quite aggressive attacking, and I think you'd have to have a lot of confidence in your center backs. I personally think someone like a Moise Bombito would be perfect for a back four long term. He's playing it for Colorado. His physical tools, like he's got the speed to play in a back four, which is again not always there. The only question is who would you pair alongside him? Because I mean, Kamal Miller's playing a back four now with Portland, so maybe it's something where it's Bombito Miller. Cornelius has played a back four in the past. Could be Bombito Cornelius. You know, Waterman, we haven't seen much of in a back four, so that'd be a bit more of a wild card. Of course, you got names we're not even here, like Lucas McNaughton's playing in a back four at times for Nashville. I wonder long term that's the plan, but yeah, in this game it feels like a three kind of is the option, and I think it depends because it's hard to tell with TNT because again, watching them, they're very dangerous on the counter, but it's not like traditional in the sense where you're not playing a team where they have natural wingers who are just hugging the line, begging to get played in behind. Their counterattack looks a bit more different. So I wonder, I think you can also get away with the back three in that sense because you're not having to deal with, I don't know, say like Jamaica, right, where they had just like a Leon Bailey or they have like a Demarai Gray who was hugging the line, wanting to get played in behind. I didn't see that a lot from TNT. They put a lot of emphasis on defending, getting numbers behind the ball. And I think with Canada, as long as Davies and Johnston or Buchanan, who could start in that wing back role, are diligent, I think that'll be a big key to stop the counter.
I agree. There's a little bit of debate in here. I'm seeing some talk about AJ being a 6 at one point. I know KJ mentioned that. I don't think we're going to see that anytime soon, but I think it would be a nice movement to see him go from that outside right center back to a more advanced role. I 100% agree, but I don't think Johnson will be in the midfield in the near future. For the national team, and honestly for Celtic as well, I just don't see that at all. I'm gonna go through a couple comments here. Travis saying lining up Miller and Cornelius beside each other after what we saw would be something else. Alex did speak a little bit on that, and honestly, when I was building the starting 11, Alex was telling me just how much he enjoyed watching Waterman and going back and watching his the games so far for CF Montreal this season. It just blew my mind. I 100% agreed, and just the reason kind of I went for it. Like I said, it just didn't seem like a natural fit right now with Cornelius and Miller, despite me and Alex talking up Cornelius for the better part of a year. So I just kind of went bold on that pick when I put my little starting 11 prediction together, even though I don't think it's going to be true. But I do think that you could argue they haven't played a lot together. You know, they just simply haven't. Maybe it's a risky game to go for it, but I think it's a kind of bold call that Biello has to go with. And I think that Cornelius and Miller would both back each other to play alongside each other and put in a good shift. So,
I mean, if not, we can, you can adjust the lineup too, right? You could put Waterman in the middle. And question is, do you then go Bombito because he's the only other right-footed option who seems likely to start? Because hey, we're forgetting Luke DeFougerolles and all this, but I don't think he's going to be starting this game. He'll maybe get a cameo off the bench if all goes well. But I suppose you could also slot Waterman in the middle. That would, again, I'm fully on board with that as well. I would see that's the thing where maybe if we're looking at this from being bold from our perspective, and we're building that, I could see Miller, Waterman, Bombito. The only thing is, I think for Biello, it's going to be a big ask to throw because if you're putting Miller, Bombito, Waterman, you're putting two center backs in Bombito and Waterman that pretty much have had little familiarity in the back line, whereas Cornelius still does have 15, 20 caps, played in some big games. Kamal Miller has, of course, 30, 40 caps, has played in some huge games. I think there's still some experience on the back line. But hey, look, I think maybe on paper at the moment, because that's the one thing we do have to remember as well. With Cornelius is still in preseason mode with Malma. They've been playing cup action. They're in the Svensson Cup final. after a good start there, but they haven't played any league games. Maybe that also gives Waterman an edge to slot in. We see Waterman Bombito, but again, that would be very much Team Bold Biello versus what we've been seeing here.
Yeah, and I went with the safe pick. I mean, and the roster he went with gives it a big possibility that we're going to see a new looking back three. If it is the Waterman, Miller, Bombito, or if it's the Cornelius, Miller, Waterman, like it's going to be a different looking back three. The closest back three you could have that has any familiarity would be the one that I said I went with. But like Alex has pointed out, there's flaws, and if you can't learn from the mistakes you've made in the past, then that's just a big question mark we're going to have on Biello going forward. But if you're looking at players who, again, for me, makes sense for Biello to do, it would be Cornelius, Miller, and Johnston, but it has its issues, and I kind of hope that we see something like we're on the screen right now, and Biello recognizes, some of the weaknesses of this national team and the problems that we've had, and he put players that are playing well at their clubs and can put them together. It's a bit of a risk because it will be a different looking back three, but that's what happened when he picked the roster. I mean, he left out some of the big boys that are the old guard at home, so it's always going to be a bit of a different look, and it's just about getting the positions and the players right and getting them to buy in. So I am very curious to see what he ends up going with, but this is a pretty tasty looking starting 11. And if you haven't noticed, I rounded it out with Eustachio Kone as the midfield, Buchanan, David as kind of your two floating 10s, have probably the ability to tuck out to his side if need be. You could even put Buchanan here and have Davies pop in every once in a while if you need to. David will definitely kind of drop and combine, and it will leave someone like a Kyle Aaron up front. I like the look of it. It'll be definitely an exciting team to take a look at. But we are going to now move on just to a couple clips. I'm going to bring up the first one of Davies talking about being a leader and the possibility of being the captain. And Alex, let me know if there's any other clips that you want highlighted. I'm just going to bring up Davies here. Make sure that we
ready
can
for them to be listened to.
There's some interesting Buchanan ones about his time at Inter too.
Let me know, guys, in the chat if you saw any as well. I'm gonna play this.
A bit about this squad, and obviously they've changed now with there's some senior players who have been moved aside particularly for this camp. What is the overall feeling now for you as a little bit more of a leader? Your words carry weight. Are you ready for them to be listened to more?
Yeah, I mean, I had a conversation with the coach. Didn't really ask him if I want to be captain. I just asked him to come put me in the runnings. Okay. Whenever that comes, whether it's the Copa America or 26, I'm ready for the role. I think I'm ready, and I think I'm ready to lead this team. I mean, overall, whether I have the armband or not, I'm still gonna lead the team in my own way, on and off the pitch. So overall, I mean, yeah, I'm excited. The new era of Canada is upon us.
I want to ask you a little bit about this squad, and obviously they've changed now with there's some senior players who have been moved aside particularly for this camp. What is the overall feel?
Sorry, Alex, just trying to get that. So, what was your biggest takeaway from that, Alex?
I mean, again, it was what we mentioned earlier. The just the desire to want to be a leader, right? That chance to want to step up and take that sort of role, going forward. So I definitely curious to see how that's gonna, how he's gonna look on the pitch on Saturday with that, knowing the responsibility, because I think especially with this game, Eustachio wearing the armband, let's see how Davies leads by example, right? Because that's going to be the big thing you're going to want from him in a captaincy sort of situation. You want him to be that guy that leads by example, that takes guys along with him for the ride, and that's what we'll see. Because as we see Eustachio, he can be a bit more of the emotional, the vocal leader. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and you see that in the way he plays and the way he speaks about this team. But with Eustachio taking on that role, hopefully we see Davies just step up and, be a leader with his play, knowing the circumstances of this game and help this team forward into a win.
I agree. I'm going to ask the chat. Let me know, guys, in the chat, we won't talk about it too much. I just want to see what you guys are thinking. I asked this question the other day. I personally do think it's down to probably 2 players. Estefan Eustachio, I just feel like the natural fit. But also in Alphonso Davies, because he's the star, and if he truly wants the armband, like, it's hard to figure out a reason not to give it to him. But I, like Alex said a little bit earlier, I like his approach and the respect for his other teammates, and knows that, it's not a shoo-in, and regardless if he gets the armband or not, he wants to prove that he is indeed a leader on the pitch. He's always been a leader on the pitch from what he actually does on it. He does his talking on the pitch, but I would love to see a little bit more of a vocal side. And Davies does have a great personality. I mean, you see it on social media, on Twitch. Like, I mean, he does. And just to be able to see him kind of take a step back, recognize what needs to be said, what needs to be done as a leader, I think will definitely help him grow as a player. So I wouldn't be mad about either one. I just do think I'm leaning a little bit more towards Eustachio. So let me know, guys, in the comment section who you think should be the next Canadian captain. There's no right or wrong answers. I think there's a good show. I mean, you could, like I said, we didn't even mention like a Johnston. I mean, if Piet starts, there's a good chance that he would wear it. But I think from the leaks, probably Piet isn't starting, considering that we know that it looks like Eustachio is going to wear it. But anyways, Alex, moving on to this clip. This is the one you're talking about, right? This is Buchanan going to Inter, and it's kind of his first experiences, I believe, with the club. But I clicked on it so quickly, I don't even know if I clicked on the right one. Is that the one you were looking for, or?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So this is another good get from our colleague, Christian Jack.
Yourself sometimes, though, like playing for this club, like Brampton boy, still, you deserve everything you get. I mean, but I mean, you've not been handed anything, but like, do you still feel like it's how special it is to play for a club like that?
Yeah. Obviously, it's massive. It's a huge club, and sometimes you don't realize it because everything's just happening so quickly. I'm move there, trying to adapt as soon as possible and learn as much as I can. So you don't really get to just take it all in. But yeah, obviously Inter's a massive club, and to be training and playing with some of the best players in the world and under one of the best coaches is huge. And yeah, super grateful for it. You
talked about one of the best coaches, Simone Inzaghi. What's he like as a coach?
Yeah, obviously he's very competitive. He wants to win, every game. Yeah, very tactical coach. Knows what he's talking about. He's very clear what he wants us to do on the pitch. And yeah, so far being there for the last 2.5 months, just for me, it's taking as much in from them and obviously my teammates, and just trying to learn what they want from me. And yeah, when I do get my opportunities to go on the field, to show it and to show that I'm doing the things that they want me to do.
So Alex, first off, what do you make of that? And I want you to get your opinion on Tajon, because obviously making the move to Inter, it was always going to be a long shot that he would get starting minutes right off the bat. I think that it's still the right move. I think we will hopefully have more of an opportunity next season to at least try to push for starting minutes. Does that worry you at all? I mean, without a Richie Larea there, Tajon will probably be asked to I would assume, go the whole 90. Like, that's kind of my guess, or at least pushing a good amount of it. Does it worry you that he's not been playing, or just the fact that he's with a big club and the teammates he goes up against every day in training, is that enough?
I think it has to be, because it's been an interesting learning curve going to a club like that. I imagine, like, it's just the level of player you're learning from, the level of coach. I think I'm not too worried, just because even if he is only 60-minute fit, I think there's enough alternatives where, say, Buchanan's playing wing back. Well, you can just slot Johnson up there at wing back. If he's playing up front, you got Liam Miller who can slot in. You got Ike Ugbo. You got even Theo Bair. Maybe you get him you give him a chance. You go through the list of all these, Jacob Schaffelberg. Like, you've got options in the attack for sure, and even at wing back, I think there's enough guys who you could slot in at that wing back role. So what I'm curious to see is how Buchanan looks. Like, how did this 3 months of training at Inter, doing rondos with Nicolo Barella, Denzel Dumfries, Lautaro Martinez, Marcus Thuram, Alessandro Bastoni, you go through the list. Like, it's a stacked team. Like, how is being in that sort of environment with a team that plays such free-flowing football, how has that helped him as a player? What sort of nuance in his game are we going to see? And of course, it remains to be seen how it affects his fitness, because it feels like every player is different. Because we saw cases where guys are barely playing, and yet for whatever reason There's like Richie Larea, right? Like 22 when he was dealing with Force, yet every time he'd come back for Canada, he'd have 90 minutes in him. But then some players, it's different, right? They need those matches to be fully fit. So really, it's hard to say because we haven't really seen a situation like this for Buchanan, because it feels like ever since 2020, he's been playing, like wherever he's been playing. He's playing regular at New England. He was playing at Bruges, and now it's kind of been the first time where he's a bit on the outside, injuries aside. We'll be curious to see how he responds, but hopefully he can bring a bit of that tactical sharpness, because Inter is such a fascinating team tactically.
Oh man. All right. We hit the last 10 or so minutes, and I just want to throw it over to the chat now, guys. So get in any questions you have leading up to this match. I truly do believe this is one of the biggest matches the men's national team has played in a very long time. I'm hoping that going to a Copa America can continue to help the sport grow in this country, and we can see what this national team can do after, again, what was a difficult 2023. We had a lot of hype, a lot of excitement. I think we took a step back, but I think this could be a good catapult into the 2026 World Cup. And I want to see this summer the likes of Messi and Davies running at each other. It's exciting. And it's all down to a single match that is tomorrow at 4 p.m. Coverage will begin here on OneSoccer, I believe, at 3:30. And yeah, so we're going to just get into the comments, guys. So fire questions in right away, and we'll talk with you guys for the remaining 10 or so minutes. First one's going to go to Alex and I guess together, but Alex has got a little insight on Ahmed, so I'll let him touch on that if you haven't already heard what Alex had to say. Who do you guys think got left out? Honestly, I think this was as good as a roster we were ever going to see. I think there's a couple question marks. I mean, because Adekubi and Larea had injuries, it is what it is. They would have been in there. I think taking 5 strikers, maybe not super necessary, but I don't dislike it, because I love the fact that a Russell Rose in a camp like this, or an Ugbo Bear, like, might have been the odd men out. But for the most part, yeah, I mean, Ali Ahmed's the one that sticks out to me, but Alex has reported on this before, and Alex, I believe it's just the fact that he just wasn't 100% fit, right?
Yeah, well, it's just he's returning off an injury. He was, in fact, ahead of timeline on his injury because he had a hernia. And I think when he first had it in February, the timeline said he'd be back early April. So, in fact, he's been on a bit of an accelerated timeline. And, with those return to plays, it's always like you have to play 15, play 30, hit a lot of benchmarks in training, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's something where he's fit. Like he's good enough to play 90 right now. But I think at the moment, in terms of like all those protocols, sometimes it's just best for him to stay in that environment where he's surrounded with his medical team at the Whitecaps he's familiar with. He plays a 90 this weekend. He continues to get up to full fitness, or maybe even 60 this weekend. Maybe 90 is a lot, and just work for it, because I think it's something where at this point because he might come to this Canada camp and be a fringe player and maybe play 15, 30. I think, again, he's someone who long-term I'd love to see him starting games for Canada. If he's to get to that, I think just getting up to full fitness, getting up to the best start possible with the Whitecaps is the goal. So it's obviously something where, you want best roster possible. He's there. He deserves it. This is someone we're talking about a lot long-term, but sometimes in managing those injuries, it's the same reason as Sam Adekubi, right? Left with Vancouver. I think he's supposed to be in the Whitecaps squad this weekend, which is great news. He's been dealing with the knee injury, but again, he only has 15, 30 minutes. It's better he continues with the team doctors he's familiar with.
Anyone else, Alex, that you felt a little hard done by that was left off? Maybe like a Brim or someone? Or do you think the roster was, besides Ahmed, pretty much what you wanted to see?
Yeah, I think it was pretty much, again, other than Theo Corbiano, I think was really the lone glaring omission. Yeah. But even then, like, I guess there is enough. It's like, again, there are a lot of forwards, so it's not like you're sitting here like this is going to be a huge miss. But again, I think personally he should be in the squad. I think he's the only one. And just to the Ahmed point, I think it's kind of telling because Osorio was left out of the squad with an injury, right? John Herdman said he's going to play some minutes this weekend. So again, I think similar scenario where we're seeing with a lot of guys like Osorio. Of course, Richie Larea, it turns out he had a lot more of a major injury than we realized, 3 months with the hamstring. But I think as we see, the kind of protocol for a lot of these guys is just stay with your clubs if you're not 100% fully fit, because I think that's what's going to matter more when it comes to May, June, because you never know with this. You come in for a camp, maybe you get disrupted, you pick up a little niggle, it can just kill you at the start of a season like this. So I think that's the Osorio one was very telling as well.
I don't know if you're comfortable answering this, Alex. If you're like the jinx or not. Who do you think will score first? Or score the first goal? Do you want to answer that, or I know everyone's got their own like kind of superstitions.
It's a bold question. I think something where it feels like TNT's due a goal, but I don't think it will come first. So I think Canada scores the first goal, and based on who we see, I think let's keep it easy. Season, he's on fire right now in France. I think Jonathan David pots the first goal. I think, of course, we'll see. Maybe end up eating the words on that one. That's the beauty of predictions. But I don't know. Based on what we see, I think Canada gets the first goal. They've typically, hey, for what it's worth, that's nothing new. They scored the first goal in both games against Jamaica. They typically do well at scoring the first goal on these sorts of games. So I don't think that's unreasonable to predict either.
Now, some TNT fans in the chat. Again, I'm just answering the questions we're getting asked. You're more than welcome to ask it as well. So I know that it does look like it's a little biased, but trust me, deep down, I am confident, but not confident. I very much recognize that this could go sideways, but we're trying to have some fun here at the end of the stream, answering some questions. So the next one, it is a good question, but it's asked as if we, qualify. So assuming we qualify, what changes do you see to the roster for the Copa America? Think anyone earns their first call for such a big tournament? I think that's a fun and a really good question. I'd assume like you'd find like an Atakubi, Larea, Osorio finding their way back into the squad. Probably leaves out like a Russell Rowe, maybe even like a Bear. Fraser would probably be left out. Maybe, yeah, I think, right? Like,
well, and then it's tough because I think, for example, Larea is a big question mark because his timeline would bring him back late June, which the Copa America starts late June. Canada has a camp in early June, so if he's missing that entire camp with his injury, I think it really depends on his recovery, right? Like so maybe we see Larea miss out. I think for the most part, the only real changes that right now I could predict. I mean, I think Ahmed's going to be in that Copa America squad 100%. Like I mentioned, I think he's fully fit. He's there. I think surely Corbianu slots in. But again, we'll see how the season develops. But I think again, this depends over the next few months. There is room for a dual national in the Copa America. I think that's not unreasonable, and I think it depends. The one we said is a long shot, but for example, Luka Koleosho, if he this will have to preface. This is not me saying this will happen, but if there's a scenario where all of a sudden Luka Koleosho opens up the door, you put him in a Copa America squad. I don't think that's that unreasonable to suggest. So I think there is room for a Koleosho type player. Who knows? Maybe if over the next 4 months, one of the many youngsters playing in Europe breaks into a first team somewhere, you have to look at it, right? Like say if a Jesse Costa breaks into a Wolfsburg, if Diallo breaks into an Inter Milan, if one of the names we don't even know yet breaks into some team, you'd also have to consider them. I don't think that's unreasonable because it's a huge chance to call in someone.
I will ride the Santiago Lopez hype because he was my guy through the U20s. He didn't disappoint, and he was just recently named to the bench once again for Pumas. So you never know, he could break in the next couple of years as an opportunity. But I think Daniel Jebison could be one to keep an eye on. There was a report that came out yesterday, if you haven't heard, that they're trying Sheffield United are trying to re-sign him to a new contract, and that they feel terrible about his last 18 months because he picked up a blood clot, which is the reason that basically he wasn't able to play. He was on blood thinners, which again, you can't play because if you get cut, it can be dangerous. And because of that injury, it led to more injuries, and it just sounded like a terrible experience for him. It seems like he could potentially return back to action towards the end of the season. So a big update there on Jebison. But I mean, this is a player. I mean, he hasn't played in the Premier League, but it's a player that clearly a Premier League side wants to have continue for their side. So the English opportunity, unfortunately, I don't think for him is coming anytime soon. So maybe that Canada door opens up. So those will kind of be my two little picks there. Got a few other ones that were tossed in as well. Seeger is an interesting one. I don't know what his future has in store, but
he's playing with Croatia's U21s right now, and he was named an alternate on Croatia's roster, but he wasn't actually in the squad. Like he was just, if someone got injured, he was one of the names up. So yeah, who knows? Maybe Copa America, you at least have a conversation. That one, it's tough because I'd love a Seeger. I think he's definitely one I'd be interested in, but he does definitely seem to be leaning Croatia. So that's a lot of a long shot.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see. You never know. Yeah, we'll have to see. But last question of the day, and because I want to make sure that any of the TNT fans in here know that it's not a. We've talked about what the side would look like, the path would look like if this national team loses this game, and Logan wants to highlight it here, saying if Canada loses, the TNT is our program back to where it was in 2018, or are the names like Davies and David enough to keep attracting dual nationals? I wouldn't say we're back to where we were in 2018 just because of the talent we have in this pool. Whether we qualify for the Copa America or not, there's never been a time in Canadian history where we've had so much talent in this pool. We've had talent playing overseas. We have the growth of Major League Soccer, so even players playing at home are playing at a level that I would say this is probably the highest and the most quality that MLS has ever had. It's a great position for potentially a new coach or Biello to come into and take this group to the next level. I just think it would be a massive, massive missed opportunity and a hit to not only the fans, but to the players. You don't think Johnston, Davies, even Crepeau, Laren, you don't think these players want to go up and take on Messi at a Copa America, have the opportunity to go up against some big hitters down in South America and show what this team is made of? It would be devastating. And then all of a sudden, like Alex spoke on this a little bit too, it's like if you miss out on this major tournament, well, now all of a sudden you're stuck really back in CONCACAF. And during World Cup qualifying, because it was such a long experience, I think it was well over a year where we only played CONCACAF nations. We felt really good because we were winning a lot of them. We topped the World Cup qualifying, but when we got our first test really outside of CONCACAF, it was a bit of a surprise. So I like the opportunity to play these nations, and we already have a friendly against the Netherlands lined up, and hopefully more to come. And it wouldn't be back to where we were in 2018 because times have changed, but it would be a massive kick to the gut for this program. Alex, final thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think the dual nationals, the only thing that would change is you miss out on a key opportunity, right? Like, again, Copa America, major tournament, you can encourage guys like a Colio, show Jefferson, name your, right? Like, you miss out on the Copa America. That's an opportunity where you can't call them, and that's probably a loss because you have to imagine for a Colio so that the U.S. is going to be calling him, that Italy might be calling him for the Euros, that, heck, that Nigeria might be calling him for World Cup qualifiers or something like that, right? And it feels like just because of that, it's a long shot, right? Like, with any of those names we mentioned. But in terms of where this program goes, I think you have to remember that there is still the 2026 World Cup. It's guaranteed. Canada's going to get their 3 games at that tournament. Top coaches will at least be attracted by that possibility. We can go into whether or not what kind of top coaches will actually come, what the budget ends up looking like, what magic Kevin Blue's able to spin over the next few months to potentially attract some top coaches. Dual nationals will be attracted by that. I think you have to remember that, that 2026 is a big reason behind this rise too. That's why a lot of guys committed to the team in 2018, 2019. It was kind of like, oh, we're committing for this vision till 2026. As part of our goal for 2026, we want to make 2022. We want to do all these things along the way. But at the end, the goal has always been 2026 for this team. And look, I think Copa America is a crucial part of the goal to 2026. And I think them making this tournament could be a big difference between them getting grouped in 2026 and getting out of their group. So I agree that it's a big part, but I don't think it changes a lot in terms of like dual nationals, in terms of coaches, because this is still a team with some talented players. They're guaranteed World Cup in 2026. I don't think we can forget about all that. Like, it's not these aren't the dark days where 2012 you lose to Honduras and it was just like, what do we do here? Because there's no World Cup. You're coming off an 8-1 loss. Like, it's definitely not those dark days.
All right, we're gonna leave it at that. There is a Alistair Johnson piece dropping on the YouTube channel right now. So thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to drop a like, drop a sub on your way out, and head over or continue to stay on the OneSoccer YouTube channel and go check out the Alistair Johnston interview. I am sure it's a banger. I haven't seen it yet, but I mean, Johnson doesn't disappoint. Cheers, friends.